Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be talking to you about some social work things. If you're interested in the field of social work and you have more questions about social work, please continue watching the video as I will try to answer some of those questions or just give a brief background into what I do, so that if you do have questions about the specific field or population that I'm currently working with, that I'll be able to create another video answering your questions, or I can answer them down in the comments down below. So if you are interested in watching this video, please continue watching and let's get into it. So in order for this video to make a little bit of sense, I have to give you a brief description of what I do. I am a hospital social worker. I work at a hospital here in my city, and I also work at an OB clinic. And so all of it is connected by a bridge across the street, like literally across the street there's a hospital, and then across from that there is my clinic. So I work within two clinics. One is more of a traditional clinic where women who find out that they're pregnant go receive care and meet with their doctors and just get their prenatal care. So that's one entity that I work with. And then there's another entity, a more specialized clinic that I work with. And we work with women who have substance use disorder or opiate use disorder, so OUD and SUD. And so I work with those two different entities. And when they deliver is when I also go to the hospital and I handle any children's division referrals, any needs. I assess any boundaries or barriers, transportation issue, housing issues, and things like that. And so there's really no limit to what I do. There really isn't a cap on what I do. I just kind of handle pretty much everything. So I am usually pretty busy. My days are never really much the same or ever truly boring. And yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. I do work at the hospital. I am employed under the hospital, and I work with two different clinics and other hospitals as a remote social worker to just more like housing, food resources, transportation issues, things like that, that I can just handle over the phone. And then, like I said, I also work at the hospital, so I have connections with the NICU, the labor and delivery floor, doctors, residents, and things like that. We all communicate. I work on a multidisciplinary team. So when I've created some previous videos about my job, what I've been doing, how it's been since I've been working from home. And I wanted to just share with you guys I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions that you have, because there have been people who are interested in working in a hospital setting, and you don't necessarily have to work on the maternal fetal floor or unit like I do, but you kind of just want an overall general understanding of what a hospital social worker does. Or maybe you're a patient who wants to know what a hospital social worker can do for you. And so this video is going to just be a type of Q&A, in a sense of I want you to ask questions, and so that I can gather some information for you and then create another video or answer your questions in the description bar, as I said earlier in the video. So I have my handy dandy iPad here, and I was looking up some questions. I was looking on Google with some general questions that people have asked about hospital social workers. And so one is, what is it like to work as a social worker in a hospital/medical setting? And it is definitely never boring. I wouldn't say it's always busy, because some days are really quiet, some days are slow. There isn't an urgency to a need. There isn't anything that sometimes, like for instance, Monday at my clinic, we had 0 patients show up. And when I say zero, we had 0 patients show up. I had no deliveries, and so it was just a day for me to catch up on previous work that I have been putting aside or slowly getting to, because I've been flooded with patients or deliveries, and so I was able to tackle that on. But there's some days like that where I have 0 patients, I don't have any current deliveries, I don't have any current urgent needs that need to be taken care of. And so it's a fluke. It happens. Sometimes it happens, and then there's other days where I am just completely busy and occupied, and just I can't really even gather my own thoughts. Okay? So it is a different setting to work in a hospital. There has been some difficulties for me just because I started working in September of 2019 and then COVID hit in 2020 March. So we went home, started working from home in April, and I've been slowly going back into the office like once a week or twice a week. And I still don't know a lot of the nurses by name or by face just because obviously nurses change jobs, people change positions, and now people have a mask covering their face. And so I don't go to the hospital necessarily as much as I used to back in 2019 and even earlier in 2020. And so there isn't a lot of like personal rapport that I have with the nurses and the residents and the doctors. And so that is sometimes a barrier and an obstacle for even myself. It's just trying to figure out how to get in touch with the person caring for this patient as far as the medical team goes. And also that goes for the other clinic as well. I'm very close and very familiar with the specialized clinic just because that is where my office is. That is where my desk is. That's where my computer is, my phone is. And so if there is a need at the more traditional clinic, then I usually get like a staff message, or I will get a referral from one of the nurses or a provider, or a call even to come over and meet with the patient. So sometimes I don't even know who, let's say, Jane Doe is that is referring the patient. I don't really know the doctors that well over there as much as I probably would have by now had the circumstances been different in 2020. So it's definitely been a learning curve. It's been definitely challenging, but it doesn't necessarily stop the services from happening or from people making referrals or resources or calls to social workers. I think this situation has actually increased our encounters with patients and increased the need for social workers as far as the medical team goes, and identifying that there is a need and that they cannot do everything and that they shouldn't be doing everything that is out of their scope to make sense. And so it's definitely been interesting. It's been always a learning curve. Of course, with resources and things like that, things are always changing recently. Things have been adjusting and restructuring, and grants are different. And there's new grants, and then there's old grants, and then there's the grants that we've been working with that are soon to be reevaluated. And so there's constantly an ebb and flow. But working in a hospital setting is not too bad. I do get holidays off, most holidays off, like the big ones, and I do accrue PTO, and it is pretty easier for me to take off work. The follow-up with patients is usually pretty brief. There are some patients where I've been at the more traditional clinic that I've followed them throughout most of their pregnancy, which is uncommon, just because if they have a higher need or higher social issues or stressors, I want to continue to keep care. If there's just like, oh, I just need a car seat, that's pretty much all I need, then that, only warrants for 1 or 2, 3 follow-ups with that patient, just making sure that they obtain that car seat. But it definitely is interesting working in a hospital setting, in a clinic setting, because what I see as a need, or what I see as the most important issue to take care of at this current moment, is not always agreed by the physician working with the patient. And just because we deem something as traumatic does not mean that it's traumatic for the patient. And so I've been in some uncomfortable situations where a nurse or a doctor had assumed just because this patient is homeless that she's in the distress, or she's in a traumatic experience, or that she must be having anxiety and depression. And when I walk in the room and have a conversation with the patient is like, I'm completely fine being homeless. Like, I enjoy going to different people's houses. I enjoy roaming the streets. I don't want any other option for myself. I already know that this baby is going with the dad, and the dad's well taken care of. We don't really, have a relationship anymore. I'm fine with my current circumstances, and, I already have everything taken care of. And so not everything is traumatic to me because I care about what the patient finds traumatic. So it's definitely hard sometimes and difficult and challenging working with multiple people on different levels, because I work with a pharmacist, I work with nurses, I work with nurse practitioners, I work with doctors, and sometimes each of them have their own opinion about what's important, and the patient can speak for themselves. You know, they know what's important to them, they know what they need, and they will address what they need and what they want. And so sometimes it's hard to find a balance to advocate for the patient and also address the concerns of the providers that are caring for their medical needs, and that they do have concerns. It's like finding a good balance and it making sure that the patient has their rights still intact, and that their voice is heard, and that they're advocating for themselves, and that I'm advocating for them, but also stressing the importance of medical care, of their concerns as the medical team, and what we can do moving forward in order to make everybody happy. And I think that's the part of being a hospital social worker, is that you have to be flexible, you have to be cautious of how you address people, of how you present things to people, of how you present information to patients, because the medical team even sometimes comes to me and it's like, she has this, and I'm like, hold on, I don't even know what that is. Break it down for me, make me understand, because I need to convey that information to the patient, because maybe she's not understanding the medical verbiage that you're using, and maybe she needs it broken down, or maybe the father needs it broken down, so that they can have a better understanding of what is going on, what shot it is, what is it for. Like, we have to be thinking on all levels. You have to think, you have to be good on your feet, a good response person, you have to have a good personality, I would say. And you know, like, all jobs have to deal with some level of politics. You have to work the system sometimes. You have to have good community skills, good people skills, because you're, like I said, you're working with a broad team of people. You're working with different types of people. You're working with different types of personalities, and it doesn't extend just to the medical team that your coworkers are, or the people that you're working with, but the patients and then their families as well. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers that question. If you need more specific things addressed, please, like I said, leave them in the comments down below, and so I can answer them or make another video. And I need a water break. Okay. What does a social worker do in hospitals? And so a social worker can do different things. I'm only going to talk specifically about the maternal fetal units floor. And with that, like I said, I handle referrals or consults that need to be addressed. So typically, a social worker does not meet with the patient first. It is usually the medical team. Obviously, if they're coming to a hospital, they have a medical issue or concern or a need that needs to be addressed. And so, of course, nurses intake goes through that first. And as they're uncovering things about the medical history or past or the current medical concern, they will then start to understand that, like, oh, this patient has anxiety or depression, or this patient says that she doesn't have transportation, or she can't get home after this appointment, or this patient says that she has stressors and she's in a domestic abuse situation. That's why she's in the hospital, because she's been assaulted, or, you know, like, whatever it is. It's usually the medical team that sees the patient first, and from there, the medical team identifies that there's a need greater than medical that a social worker can address or should address. And so I usually would get those consults when they're coming straight, when, like, in the actual hospital. I usually get those consults about that, or it can be for the baby as well. If a mother comes in with a positive drug screen, that is also something that warrants social services attention. A social worker usually needs to make the referral and follow up with Children's Division and the family in order to keep them updated on the process of the referral, which is, in my state, is called a newborn crisis referral. It's when drugs are found in the system. And also, like, we just do a wide range of things. So housing needs, utilities needs, it has really no cap about what we do. Just because we work in a hospital, we tackle everything. So we work specifically with the patient, but also if the patient has other children and other family members that are under them or with them, or also in concern, then we need to tackle the whole family unit as well. So there really isn't anything that a social work, hospital social worker can't do that if you weren't in a smaller agency. We deal with foster care, we deal with adoption, we deal with transportation, Medicaid, things like that. It's literally everything. Everything. So a typical day is just like you meet with patients. Like I said, once you get a referral, sometimes I believe the inpatient social workers, I'm an outpatient social worker because I work inpatient with the clinics. So I work majority of the time with the clinics, and when one of my clinic patients delivers, that's when I usually go to the hospital. But my other coworkers who are inpatient social workers who are always at the hospital, they will meet with the patients once they're admitted to the hospital and do a consult on every single mother that's on the labor and delivery floor, or even in our WEU, which is the women's evaluation unit. I ended up stopped recording, and then I started back, and I've been talking this whole time without recording. So I don't really know what I was saying, but I was talking about the WEU. So we usually address those first just because that's our emergency room for pregnant women. And we try to, well, the inpatient social workers will meet with the patients each and every time that they come into the floor, and meet with those women in the WEU as well, and address any needs or concerns that they have. Maybe even with the medical team, we make sure that the lactation consultant sees them. We also help with discharge planning. If the children's division is involved, we make sure, and we have to we have to participate in the disposition or the team decision meeting. And we also have to tell and inform the medical staff of the discharge plan, because we are responsible for making sure that the medical team is aware of the current circumstances and situation regarding children's division, if they decided to take custody, or if they wanted to remove the parents from the hospital, or if they're going to proceed with foster care and have the foster parents come up. We work with the NICU team in order to get updates and provide that to the parents or the children's division, and any other concerns that any of the hospital staff has, from lactation consultant to pharmacy to NICU team to labor and delivery team to antepartum team. And yeah, so pretty much it's just like following up with children's division, following up with any resources, making sure that the patient has a car seat, pack and play, baby items needed, coordinating care, and things like that. Making sure that the baby has a follow-up appointment with pediatricians. But this is the parents' responsibility, but we make sure that it happens so that the baby can be discharged with the parents, and that baby already has a follow-up appointment, because that is necessary. You cannot discharge home with your baby without a medical appointment and follow-up. So making sure that the parents' needs are taken care of, making sure that they need to be seen by a chaplain if they've been having difficulties with getting pregnant, or maybe they just had an abortion, or maybe they just had a miscarriage. And so we handle all of that. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of what needs, or what a typical social work duties or responsibilities are. So I get a lot of questions about, do you need to have a license? I just turned in my paperwork for licensure again, and that is something that I want for myself. That is not something that you need. You do not need to have your LMSW or LCSW. My direct coworkers, all three of them, have their LCSWs, and then the inpatient social workers, I only think that one has her LCSW, but there are 2 or 3 other ones who just have their MSW. I think one is also working on her LMSW, but you do not need at my specific hospitals with the healthcare, I don't even know what it's called, healthcare organization that I work for. You don't need to have your license. It is, suggested that you get it. It is probably more beneficial and effective if you get one. And especially if it's competitive, you should probably get it, just because it gives you a one-up on the person that you're competing against. But I am still in the process of obtaining my licensure. And so no, you do not need it for my specific hospital. And other hospitals that I've looked into, you also do not. I have a friend that I did my practicum with, and we're still very good friends. And maybe I can have her on a video, because she also did hospital work with another organization at another hospital. and healthcare organization, and she had a completely different experience than me. I worked in maternal fetal unit and she worked in a completely different unit, and now she even works at a college working with I guess the court system and interviewing children and parents and things like that. So she also has a very interesting and fun job, but you do not need a licensure or your license in order to be a hospital social worker. So hopefully that answers your question. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Is it a rewarding job? In a way, it is very rewarding and can be rewarding, especially when you get to see, especially with my specific clinic that I spend like 90% of my time devoted to and working with are the women who have substance use disorder. That is the main reason why I was hired, was to work with that specialized clinic, because I have experience working in substance use, a lot of experience working in substance use. And so it's very rewarding to see some of the moms maintain sobriety or achieve sobriety, and to see their success, because some of them we do keep for 2 years postpartum, to see the babies grow, to see the babies recover, to see people establish medicated assisted treatment, MAT is what we call it. And it also sometimes is a very hard and difficult job. Not even gonna lie to you. I was trying to fix the light, but whatever. It can be a very rewarding job, and so it's very difficult too, because I deal with mostly a population that tends to kind of deceive and fabricate things and manipulate. But regardless of the stereotypes or the realities of the situation, is that they're human. They deserve adequate and great care. They deserve to be treated fairly, and so that is what I put my emphasis on, is that they're human, they're struggling, and they need some people to help them out. And so who am I to sit here and judge? I'm not perfect. Just because I don't have substance use disorder, I'm not perfect, period. Okay, so I spend a lot of my time with that, and so some of it can be very frustrating, because some people don't care about their care. Some people don't care about how their kid is brought into this world. Some people don't care about their current circumstances, and it's just like, I want you to care, but you don't care, and I have to respect that in a sense. And so I just do my job, and sometimes it is a lot when I have a lot of different children in the hospital, or I have just a busy day with a lot of moms coming to their appointments, and then I have needs at another clinic, and then I have other hospitals calling me to take care of that patient. And so sometimes, some days it can be overwhelming. Some days it doesn't seem like it's rewarding at all. To be completely honest with you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've been a social worker since 2016, and so I've seen it pretty much all. I've seen some parents just neglect. I've seen some women, some fathers leave the picture. I've seen some moms give birth and then they leave the hospital and they never come back. So some days it's just like, what? They're not me and I'm not them. So I just have to put my head down and get to work and find stable housing, find support, find treatment, do whatever I can to help those who do want the help. And then that's rewarding enough, is that when people identify that they need help and they're making that steps and the effort in order to obtain help, establish care, establish psychiatry, whatever it is, those who are willing, I'm willing to help. And those who aren't willing, I'm still willing to help. But you know, it does make the job a little bit more difficult and challenging. Some things that I've been tapping more into recently while working is grant things. Stuff that I never really wanted to do or had really any interest in is the data collecting, research, analyzing, things like that. At my previous jobs, they already had a system that pretty much would be able to calculate that or figure out or configure that data and collect it and give a report. But at my current job, they were not really keeping track of data and research and things like that. So it became a little difficult when, you know, you're a year or so in the job and now they want to start collecting data. And so that can be a little frustrating. Grant writing can be stressful, and especially when, like I said, you're working in a hospital setting. So there's entities, there's managers, there's supervisors, there's people that you have to go through many steps instead of working in a small organization where maybe it's just you and 5 other social workers and you have a social worker supervisor. I don't have that. And so I work with medical team, which sometimes they don't understand what a social worker does. They don't understand why we're advocating for the patient in the way that we are, because sometimes you don't necessarily need consent in order to do or save a patient's life, but I need consent. You know, I'm not a doctor. I just can't make decisions that works best in the benefit of the patient. They have their right. As long as they are able to make those decisions, I'm going to give them the opportunity to. There's obviously certain things as a mandated reporter that I cannot just allow and let slide through, or like, oh, they have the decision to use drugs and not, you know, deal with children's division. That is not the case. I'm a mandated reporter. If there's going to be drugs in this baby system and there is drugs in the baby system, I'm making a report, and I make that known to the patients as soon as possible, especially if they come to our clinic earlier in their care. I make sure that is known. I try to prepare them, and I try to advocate for them and just provide information to the state. I kind of feel like I'm going a little bit everywhere with this video, but I'm just going to end it right here. Please, like I said, feel free to send in your questions, to send in any concerns that you have, maybe your experience, and I would love to just start maybe a segment or a playlist on this channel just devoted to social work questions. I can talk about my previous jobs. I worked as an inpatient social worker when I was doing my practicum in my undergrad. And then I also worked with family and children at a Head Start program. And I did that for over 2 years, I think. And then I did a smaller healthcare organization, not hospital, but it was a clinic. And I specialized in behavioral health and also substance use disorder. And I did counseling groups on pretty much all of those jobs. I worked with families and children and mothers, and so I have my overall general focus and populations that I've worked with are women, children, families, substance use disorder, alcohol, OUD. I've also worked with a little bit of behavioral health and mental health, and I feel like there's one more that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I think you guys pretty much get the point. If you have any questions about anything social work related, please feel free to drop those comments down below. I thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Social Work Month. Happy Women's Month. And go out and be the best social worker that you can, the best person that you can. Always give people the opportunity to encounter positivity. I always give people the opportunity to encounter positive change, and that there's good people in the world. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And I love you guys. I don't even know you, but I love you. I thank you for all the work that you've been doing, because I know that sometimes we're overlooked, we're neglected, we're pushed to the side. But baby, I see you. You're doing great. Keep going. Keep the fight going, guys. We're in this. Little do you know, you're making changes in people's lives, and I hope that you guys are doing well. Bye.